Okay.
Here we go.
Check 1, 2.
Good evening, everyone. I am calling to order the meeting of the Hamilton-Wenham Regional School Committee on Thursday, November 16th, 2023, at 7:02 p.m. I am going to move to adjourn into a very brief executive session for purpose number 3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining with the ESP union, where an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigation position of the public body, and the chair so declares. And we will return to open session. And I think I need a roll call vote.
Roll
Oh,
call.
a
Need a second.
second. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by David Polito, and we need to do a roll call vote. Jen?
Yes.
David?
Yes.
Amy?
Yes.
Dana's yes. David?
Yes.
All right, and we are adjourned into executive session, and we will return. And I'm back.
She's
Okay. All right, and I call the meeting back to order at 7:10. And at this moment, I will invite you to join us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, next on the agenda, we have an opportunity for citizens' comments. Not sure whether we have anyone available. Any citizen, this is citizens' comments as an opportunity for citizens who wish to be heard, to have a space for that. In citizens' comments, it's important for citizens to remember that it's an opportunity for us to listen and for you to speak. And so it's not a back and forth dialogue, it's really an opportunity for the school committee to listen to your views. Before I read the rest of this, I'm not sure if there's anyone in the room who wants to offer a citizen's comment. If so, you could approach the podium. Okay. Mr. Tracy, do we have anyone on Zoom?
We do not.
Okay. At this point, looks like there are no citizens' comments, so I will close the citizens' comments period at 7:12 p.m.
Closing Zoom.
Thank you. Next up, I am going to ask, I think, David Frankel to read a portion of our protocols.
Sure, thanks. Is this working? 1, 2, 3, testing? Okay. As elected members of the Hamilton Wenham Regional School Committee, we, including the superintendent, accept the high honour and trust that has been placed in us to ensure that the students of the district receive the best education possible. To that end, we hereby commit to the following in the conduct of our business. 1, members of the committee will make no independent commitments or take any independent actions that relate to the school district. When school committee members attend meetings of other committees or boards, they will speak as individuals. They may only speak for the committee when designated to represent the committee.
Thank you. And David Polito is going to read a portion of our mission statement.
The Hamilton Wenham Regional School Committee will lead and inspire a district that supports and guides the superintendent to execute and achieve the approved 2023-2024 district goals.
Thank you. Next up, we have our student representative report. Mr. Tracy, would you like to introduce our student representative?
Sure. Tonight we have Evie Bernard. She will be doing our student rep report for this evening. So welcome, Evie.
Hi,
The floor is yours.
Thank you for having me. I just wanted to talk about what every school has been up to. So to start off with the high school, recently we held a blood drive. The science team ran it and it was super successful. Next, we had the Habitat for Humanity project on November 7th, where a couple students went and worked in this construction zone. Then we're in the middle of holding a winter gear and clothing drive. We're partnering with Eastern Essex Regional Public Health Coalition, and it's really useful because we can use it as a Spirit Week competition, which we are also in the middle of. On Tuesday, we have our harvest concert, and that will include high school singers, an auction, and a bake sale. And as I said earlier, we are in the middle of our Spirit Week, which has various dress days, games like dodgeball and volleyball, and after-school activities like homecoming and powder puff. You can see the schedule on the right. Next, we also just finished up our high school sports fall season. The cross-country team was super successful, and they were Cal champs and earned Division III-B champions, or they were Division III-B champions. They are competing at the All-State Championships on Saturday. The boys and girls soccer team were also Cal champs, and unfortunately we lost in the elite 8-round. Volleyball was also super successful and also unfortunately lost in the Elite 8 round. Football had a great win on Friday, November 10th, and we have the Thanksgiving game coming up versus Ipswich. And field hockey and golf also had great seasons. So the high school clubs, there's many obviously, but we are focusing on the Environmental Club and Garden Club because they planted some daffodils in front of the high school recently. And as I mentioned earlier, the science team had a blood drive, and they also participated in the first meet of the year on October 10th, and then we also just hosted the second meet of the year on Tuesday. So moving on to the middle school, they also just finished up their fall intramurals, volleyball, dodgeball, indoor soccer, basketball, golf, and cross country, and they're starting their winter intramurals, and they are talking about their 8th grade Washington, D.C. trip that is happening in the spring. Moving on to Winthrop, the 5th graders and the high school's outing club met up to clean up Patton Park. You can see the pictures on the right. They're also holding a book fair on November 30th and December 1st, and they are planning and getting ready for the Holiday Boutique on December 2nd. Cutler is getting ready for their 4th grade field trip to Hammond Castle, or they might have already gone on it, and they are getting ready for the ski, skate, and board sale on November 18th. The members of the high school ski team are volunteering, and I think there are other high schoolers also volunteering there to earn community service hours, and this is an opportunity for people to donate, consign, and shop with their winter gear. Bucher School, there's not much to update, but there are 2 upcoming book fairs on November 29th and November 30th. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone have questions? Evie, I want to just say thank you for that. And it's not really a question, but I really appreciated that, you know, we get these reports only every so often from a student representative. It's nice to hear them from a different viewpoint. And one of the things I noticed you highlighted were a lot of the opportunities for the high school students to collaborate and pair up. You said at Winthrop and at Cutler with, you know, and that was really fun to hear about. I think that's really neat for us to hear about those connections that are happening. So thank you for sharing that.
Thank you
and
for
highlighting
having me.
that. Great. Nobody else had questions? Abby, you are, as always, and everyone, welcome to stay and also not required to do so. So you're welcome to stay, but if you have homework or things to do,
Thank
we
you.
understand. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Evie.
Thanks for coming.
Okay. I thought that was really fun to hear about. And the blood drive, too. It's great. Good stuff. All right, next is the consent agenda. Before we have a motion on that, does anyone have any items that they would like to have held from the consent agenda? I do. I would like to hold the minutes from November 2nd. All right, is there anything else? Oh, I think it's to you, Julia.
I move that we accept the consent agenda as presented, holding the minutes from November 2nd.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor? That is unanimous of the 6 members. All right, so I held the minutes because, and this is really in the weeds, but I held the minutes because under the finance and operation portion of the minutes, it says, in response to a question regarding pension funding, assistant says, and I went back and listened to it only because I was really asking Vinny some questions to fully understand the OPEB and the pensions and the funding that the auditor, and I went back, it's Jen Carr that asked the question, and I actually watched it again, and it actually is an OPEB question. It's not about pension funding.
That's correct.
Right, and the question was a good question and one that really made me think, and so I was like, oh. So I guess my motion would be that I would say that it should be in response to a question regarding OPEB funding. I'll tell you what the actual audio, at least what I watched the audio, or the question was actually, how much more would we have to fund OPEB to increase that to 5.52%? So anyway, my motion is to change the word pension to OPEB,
Where is this?
It's-
Page 1A.
under finance and
9A.
operations.
9A.
Okay, so
It's like the last line.
in
on the
response to a
page,
question regarding OPEB
or page
funding,
2.
Right, that's my motion, so,
do you want to include your question in the minutes?
no,
Okay.
no.
No, just it's about OPEB, not pensions.
Okay, do you want me to make a motion?
That would be great.
Okay. I move to amend the minutes from November 2nd to replace the word pension with OPEB in number 9, the item number 9, finance and operations.
Do we have to vote to amend?
I don't know.
So
No, you can vote to approve with
Right.
with an amendment.
that's what we need to do.
Okay, I move that we approve the minutes of November 2nd with the replacement of the word pension with the acronym OPEB in item number 9, finance and operations.
Second.
Second by Jen Carr. Is there any discussion? Okay, all those in favor? And that is unanimous and motion passes. Thank you all for indulging me on that. It was a tricky one. All right, well, yeah. Okay. And next, we are fortunate enough to have a presentation from our DECA group.
Good evening, school committee and Superintendent Tracy. It's really nice to see you guys. Thank you for having us. My name is Hannah Powers. I'm a senior at Hamilton Wenham Regional High School, and I am a DECA officer along with these ladies next to me. We have Hannah Cirillo, Erica Conway, Marissa Conway, Ava Fleury, Julia Sappis, and our DECA ambassador, Caroline Cirillo, representing the junior class today. We're super excited to present to you what we have for the 2023 to 2024 DECA season. Hope you guys enjoy.
All right, my name is Ava Fleury. I'm a Hamilton Wenham High School senior and a DECA officer, and I'm going to explain what exactly DECA is. So on paper, DECA is a business club, but in actuality, it is much more than that. DECA reaches over 200,000 high school students across all 50 United States, 4 U.S. territories, and many other foreign countries. DECA is an opportunity for students to learn to build transferable skills such as communication and experience practicing being in the workforce.
The important question is, what does this year bring for Hamilton Wenham DECA? We're back, bigger and better than ever this year, with 253 students. That's about 60% of our school population and the biggest amount of students we've ever had in DECA. We started off the year with a new member orientation, where new members can come in and learn how to maximize their potential in DECA this year. We're also participating in multiple competitive activities, such as Stock Market Game, Virtual Business Challenge, and the statewide Quiz Bowl competition. We're also participating in active fundraisers such as Riley Rocks and Turkey Grams, a speaker series with local business professionals, and competition prep for real-world situations.
So our first successful fundraiser this year was the Pajamas for Pediatric Cancer. We partnered with HW Gives Back and the Riley Rocks Foundation. One of my coworkers from my job, Riley Rocks was her sister, and so we were able to connect with Beverly DECA and all the other schools in the area that participated, and thus being able to, expand our outreach into more than just our Hamilton Wenham community. We participated in this fundraiser on September 29th, And every student at Hamilton Wenham was invited to donate $1 in exchange for wearing their pajamas for a whole day. And we were able to raise over $200 in cash and much more on Venmo. So this was a huge success, and it raised a bunch of awareness for not only Rally Rocks, but also for what DECA is capable of.
One of the main parts of DECA at Hamilton Wenham is competition. This is my favorite part. And nearly all of our members compete at the district competition in December. So there are many different categories. A big part at Hamilton Wenham are role plays. This is a scenario in various business categories such as sports and entertainment marketing, buying and merchandising, and finance. And you go in front of a judge and present on a scenario you're given during the day of competition. And you also take a 100-question multiple choice test on various business information. Some members also choose to do a project, which is a more in-depth and long-term process, but no matter what category you choose, you gain a lot of skills, from communication to quick thinking skills to critical thinking skills that are applicable no matter what you want to do in your career. And competition is definitely, where there's a lot of the actual business information, development of skills, but also it's just a really fun day where we get to go as a DECA community, and we get to meet other members from different schools, and we get that collaboration and fun environment. So it's a really great experience for everyone.
Now, Julia just talked to you about what happens at competition, and now I'm going to explain the competitions themselves. There are 3 stages to DECA competition: districts, states, and ICDC. The majority of our members do attend districts, which is a one-day event at the DoubleTree Hotel in Danvers. From there, our members are able to qualify to attend states, which happens over the course of one weekend at the Marriott Copley in Boston. At states, the members who attend are there and able to qualify for ICDC, which is taking place in Anaheim, California this year. All stages of competition are really fun and exciting, and our members work really hard to advance to the next stage. Now, Julia just touched upon role plays, which is what the majority of our members compete in, and now I'm going to explain a written project, which is what the rest of our members do. A written project is a 20-page paper with a 15-minute presentation where a student puts together a research plan for a company or organization of their choosing. Research plans help students develop real-world skills like communication with these companies, business calls, and business emails. I myself am doing a written project this year, and I am partnering with Adidas in the Boston Marathon, but a couple other examples of companies other students are partnering with is Soccer Without Borders and the Annisquam Yacht Club.
I'm going to talk a little bit about, sorry, my voice is going, our DECA family and mentor teams. Every member is drafted onto an officer team, and those officers will mentor those members throughout their DECA year. Now, there are 2 officers per team, and these officers help new members get acclimated. They help create communication channels and build relationships and develop family dynamic.
What else does Hamilton Wenham DECA do? DECA is way more than just a competition. One great example is our speaker series. Our speaker series creates connections between students and business professionals within our community. So far this year, we've had 3 professionals come in, and we have 2 more lined up to come in December. Our speakers come from a variety of professions, some including the medical field, nonprofit organizations, and overall business. Another huge part of DECA is our fundraising. I'm currently leading one of our biggest fundraisers, our turkey candy games. They're a great way to give thanks to our friends and faculty and fundraise for DECA. Not only do DECA members learn applicable business skills at competition, but they can also furthermore learn at our school retail store. Our school store is open 4 days a week during the school day, where their students can learn more about promotion, finance, and retail.
Now, you might be thinking, why is DECA important for students? The main reason why students join DECA is to develop transferable skills for college and careers. And although that is the main reason, DECA also helps those students build self-esteem, gain leadership experience, and practice community service. I myself joined DECA because I knew it was a great way to build friends and find a community in high school. Additionally, I want to major in business, and it has helped me build foundational business skills that I'll take with me for college this year. But everyone joins DECA for different reasons, so some of our other officers are going to give the reason why they themselves joined DECA.
I joined DECA to learn more about what it means to be involved in the business field and to see if that's something that I'd like to do as a future career.
I initially joined DECA because I knew that it would look really good on a resume, but I ended up finding out that it meant a lot more. I was able to meet people from all over the world and learn a lot of skills that I've been lucky enough to apply to my job, and been able to apply knowledge from my job back into DECA through communicating with the managers at my job, which ended up bringing me to the International Career Development Conference in April.
I originally joined DECA because of how much fun it looked like. The competitions just looked like an absolute blast, and they absolutely are. But now I've realized that I actually have a passion for this kind of stuff, these business skills, and I love the confident person that it's helped me become.
I originally joined DECA just because I wanted to try a new club, but I've stayed in DECA because not only has it given me new business information knowledge and developed my transferable skills, but I also feel like it's been integral in developing my character throughout high school. I feel more confident in myself and my abilities, and I feel more confident in my ability to take initiative. And these are things that I'm going to carry with me not only in college, but also in my career life and into life beyond that.
I also joined DECA because it looked really good on a resume, and I was really looking for a new club to join in school, and this seemed very interesting. But I stayed in DECA because it really helped me become a better person in general. It made me more confident, and it really allowed me to develop my business skills and my personal skills, interpersonal skills with other people.
I joined DECA because I saw all of these people that were very confident in themselves and were excellent leaders, and I knew that that was something that I wanted to at least try to learn more about in high school so I could be further educated before I went into college and to my career.
We want to thank you for the continuous support of this valuable program and for donating your time to us tonight, and we hope that you follow us on social media to see how we do at competition this year. Thank you.
Thank you all. Does anybody have any questions for the DECA team? I just want to say that thank
Wow,
you.
I'm just really
That was-
impressed.
Okay, go ahead.
I just want to say I'm very impressed. Like I do public speaking, but I know how hard it is to get up in front of a group and speak, especially speaking about personal experience. So I commend all of you, and I just think it's fantastic. And I always see emails and events and fundraisers being organized by DECA, so the word is definitely getting out there. So you
Thank
do a
you.
great job with visibility.
Thank you. And I do want to just note that we did, I don't know if you were looking at the agenda, but we did approve 2 DECA field trips, so it sounds you guys did touch upon those opportunities for competition, so those were both approved today on our consent agenda. So we've done that already. Does anybody else have anything? No. I did want to say I have seen the DECA presentation before, but I always learn something new. I wanted to say I'm really interested in here. I was really interested to hear about the mentoring teams. I didn't realize that was a part of the program, and that sounds really wonderful. What an opportunity for both the mentor and the mentee. And thank you, Mr. Tracy.
I just want to take a moment to thank the person who put all this together. Many years ago, when I was the high school principal, we crossed paths, and she said, I want to make this proposal for this program. I can make it happen, and here it is with 60% of the high school. So this is Laura Wheeler, who is the high school business teacher, but also the driver of DECA. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. And thank you for a very professional presentation. We
Great
see a
job.
lot of presentations, and I can say that was a very professional presentation. Thank you very much for
A
that.
lot of different voices too.
Okay.
Thank you.
Nice
Thank
work.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have 2 kids in DECA, and that's the first I've heard about anything happening in December.
I've won.
And I literally just texted him, like, yo, what's going on in December?
I hope you took notes. Okay. So, next on our agenda is a vote on the 2023 to 2026 ESP contract. And I'm not sure.
Do you need the motion first?
Yeah, let's
Yeah, you need a
start with a
motion.
motion.
Okay. I move that the Hamilton Wenham Regional School Committee approve the 2023 to 2026 ESP contract as written in the exhibit attached to the agenda.
Second.
Seconded by Jen Carr.
I just want to point out, there's a note from Mark in there that got pulled over. Are you guys,
I can't hear you, can you?
did you open the exhibit? It looks like there's a note in here from Mark from earlier today.
A note?
On the exhibit?
Just said he picked a reasonable date over Article 17.
Yeah, I actually was able to see that also. I
Page 13.
think it's because you have editing access or something, like I was able,
I just
oh,
wanna-
no, there it is, yeah. Yeah.
Well, he would have the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But just where, it says as written. I want to make sure that we just note that that's there. That looks like the only thing, except for December 1st is highlighted on the 16th. I mean, on the page 16.
Yep.
say that again, for some reason, I'm not,
Page 16,
there's
December
just a
1st.
highlighted letter.
oh, is highlighted?
Yep.
And if I really wanted to get nitpicky, that table's not complete.
Yeah, the tables are not formatted, I noticed that, the tables formatting was,
We'll actually clean that up in the final document. It was,
This is so much better than the old contracts.
right, exactly.
It's like glued and duct tape written in marker.
Yeah, no, the formatting was, but that's what it is. Sorry. Does anybody have any questions? And this, the agreement was, and Nicholas Restaino is here this evening, but to let us, it has been ratified by the ESPs themselves. Yes.
Nice.
Great.
Can I just ask what date they ratified it? Just,
Not this Monday.
It was last one, yeah.
okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I'm just having a computer. Okay, all right. Looks like we're ready to vote. Okay. And this is, other than it being a three, we don't need to do anything different. Okay, all those in favor? And that is unanimous. And the motion passes. All right.
We didn't even make the news. Boring.
Oh, boy. Yeah, please. And yes. Thank you to everyone for their work on that, and thank you, Nick, for coming this evening to, just in case, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you for your commitment to public service. It's often a thankless task, so it needs to be said more, and I'd be remiss if I didn't mention it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Can I
See you
say one
soon.
thing?
Absolutely.
Yeah. I think it's important to note that the process went really smoothly because both sides were ready to get to work and ready, kind of stayed focused on the job at hand. And I think everybody is happy with the final result to take care of our ESPs. So thank you, Nick,
Yeah.
and to the HWA side.
Yep.
Definitely going to mention the fact that we wrote an entire contract from scratch in, under 10 meetings?
Probably record time.
Record
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
Yep.
So,
Compared to other places, probably record time.
Yeah,
great. Thank you so much.
yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, I'm having a little, it doesn't matter, I'm on paper. Okay, nope, I'm good. All right, next up, I'm gonna turn to you, Mr. Tracy.
Thank you. I just wanted this to be available to all the committee members. This was recently voted and accepted by the Cutler School Building Committee. It is one of the more important pieces of the puzzle as we move forward with the Cutler Elementary School project. And what it really attempts to do is to think differently about education as we look towards the future in a possible building project. It takes into account all of the options that the MSBA and the district have agreed to examine, As everybody knows, that process is underway now in the feasibility study where we're examining processes. We're looking at options for locations and options for locations on location. So when you look at a particular plot of land where things might fit better than others. So they'll look at all of those things over the next few weeks and months and really start to move towards what they call the schematic design, which really gives us a square foot value of what the project would cost for each of the 4 alternatives. But the educational plan is really giving us the opportunity to look towards the future and think differently about the way we do business. It talks a lot in this plan about neighborhoods, and we've heard a lot in the community about keeping our schools smaller and the way we do business smaller. And we're thinking about neighborhoods, and we're thinking about interconnectivity with things like STEM labs and art in these neighborhoods. We're thinking of looking differently at libraries, so it's not a place you go, it's a place you're at when you're in your quote neighborhood. Really staying focused on grade level teams and taking advantage of the interconnectivity of 5th, 4th, 3rd, 2nd, 1st grade, so that we can look at it from different avenues with mentorships from older kids to younger kids. We can look at it with how we use space, indoors, outdoors, bringing the outdoor in and bringing the indoor out, giving kids the opportunities to not only be in a classroom, but also to flex into smaller spaces around these neighborhoods, giving teachers the opportunity to not only be in their classrooms, but also to work together in connected teacher planning rooms with other professionals, like support professionals, like people who are specializing in things like special education or testing, and really gives them the opportunity to work together in a smaller community, but also the building supports that kind of bigger, exciting factor of school. And this educational plan, I wanted to make it available for you to all read and review, and certainly if you have questions, reach out to me, please. Again, this was an effort and a half by a number of people. I do want to thank our elementary principals, all 3 elementary principals, Ben Scherson, Carolyn Shediak, Juliana Schneider, as well as Jen Clifford, our Director of Teaching and Learning, Stacy Busick, our Director of Student Services, and then Tom Geary, Director of Maintenance and Operations, all came together to put this plan together, and it really will serve as the foundation moving forward. This is the document that will be going to the MSBA to really say to them, this is how we view our school of the future. Doesn't matter the model, but we're looking at the same ideas and taking advantage of some of the new and improved and upcoming things that we saw in new schools that we went to visit that were amazing and really made a difference for teaching and learning. So we're excited about that, but I just wanted everybody to have it since it was approved by the school building committee. And again, please read through it, take your time, and if you have questions, please reach out to me directly, and certainly willing to go through it with anybody as well.
Okay.
Thank you for that, and thank you for sharing that. Yeah.
I was obviously privy to this a little bit before you guys, and it's actually pretty awesome. Like,
Yeah.
it's really cool seeing, I mean, everything we've been talking about for the, 8 years I've been on this board, actually seeing it in writing in one piece, in one place is really, really pretty impressive to think about, where this district really wants to go, and the fact that we actually have this solid vision, and the amount of time where we just spoke about how quickly we got that contract together. 2 months, maybe?
Less.
Not even? Less than 2
Yeah,
months they put.
it was 4.5
this-
weeks.
And this is, a dissertation. Like, it's 80 pages long of in-depth, research and planning for our district. So, definitely take the time to thumb through it. It's really, really impressive.
And certainly, if people want to see it. If you hear from somebody who wants to see it, it's available here on our agenda. It's not going anywhere, but it's also on the website. It'll be on the website. If not already, it will be on the website tomorrow at some point during the day, but the idea is just to really give people an opportunity of what can be, which I think is the most exciting aspect of what we're doing.
Okay.
Are there any other meetings of this committee?
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
Yep.
there'll be many
We
more
meet
meetings.
monthly.
Monthly. Then those are open to the public, so people can go.
Those are public meetings, yep.
Yep.
I
Okay.
I actually watched.
And is the
I
list
watched
is on the
most recent
website?
one.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. No, I actually went to the most recent one. It was very interesting to watch. and
Cool.
Listen.
That was a good one.
Huh?
That was a good one.
Yeah.
Well, again, a lot of interesting stuff.
Very interesting.
my
That was
gosh,
very
there's a lot
interesting. It
here.
was very interesting. Yeah. Right. Anybody? Okay. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. All right. Next up, we are going to get our initial recommended budget presentation. I'm going to get.
I also printed out a little thing for you guys to try to summarize it, 'cause there's way too many slides.
Thank you.
Thanks, Vinny.
And it's easy to read, it's a little bigger.
There we go. Jen, get one of these? Jen, did you get one? Oh, okay.
Anyone needs to get a stretch, do so, because it might be a long one.
We just watched DECA.
Yeah.
You can do that efficient.
I'll try.
10 different people talking.
They were efficient and clear. You can do it.
You like the felt tip?
Okay, so tonight I'm here to present to you the superintendent's initial FY25 budget recommendation. And just a first disclaimer of many, this is our initial presentation. The budget will change and go in both directions. It'll increase and decrease throughout the next 3 months as items get updated and deadlines for submission of certain documentations come due. So although a lot of this stuff will stay the same as presented tonight, there will be a lot of changes throughout the next 3 months. I'd just like to thank Eric and the leadership team for their help and input in developing the budget over the past about a month and a half. So some of the first things we look at when we develop our budget consist of the following items. Some of the biggest things is our collective bargaining agreements, just like the ones you guys just approved for the new ESP union. We pull all the contracts and review them and update any of the salary schedules or any of the new stipends that are incorporated. Most of them come with COLA adjustments and step increases. The teacher's contract as well as the new ESP contract also have articles in there for column or lane changes. Those come with advances in your degree or the more college courses you take. you can move along the salary schedule. In addition to that, we also look at the individual administrative contracts for our leadership team and incorporate any changes that we may have agreed to within those agreements. In addition, we try to incorporate any known retirements. Usually when somebody retires, they're a more seasoned employee that falls deeper in the salary schedule and higher in the steps, or deeper in the steps. And we usually try to replace them with a less seasoned teacher that doesn't have as many years of experience and may fall lower in the salary scale. In addition, we incorporate any turnover that we might have. Building the budget right now is almost 18 months in advance of the ending of the budget, so a lot of staff changes occur between now and then. So whatever changes have occurred over the prior 18 months, we try to incorporate into the budget and put it forth tonight. In addition, one of the big items involves health insurance. We always try to set enrollment changes or give an estimate on our premium rate increases. This doesn't occur until around March after the budget is already passed. So most of the premium rate increases, I work with our insurance broker to kind of get an estimate of what he sees in the market and what we should put in for our health insurance premium rate increases. In addition, we try to incorporate any transportation costs. For FY23, this is the third and final year of our contract with Salter, our bus company, so we do have known costs for transportation, but in some years this may fluctuate because it's a new contract and we're estimating what the future may hold. In addition, Stacy Busick, our Student Services Director, works in any out-of-district tuition costs or any projections in new enrollments or changes to our enrollments. I thought it was an echo, but I think it was the gym. In addition, this incorporates any new requests from our building principals or our department heads. And last, we try to take a good look at the conditions of all our buildings and grounds and see what needs to be upgraded or what needs to be replaced during the year and try to incorporate it into the budget. When building the budget, though, the very first thing I tend to look at is our enrollment shift. Normally, when a lot of people build the budget, they start with their expenses, but I actually start at the end of the budget and work my way backwards. The reason for doing this is because I really try to put in the front of all our decisions what's ultimately going to happen to the towns and what's ultimately going to happen to the taxpayers. If there's going to be a huge enrollment shift, we want to know that ahead of time before we start building the budget, so we can always have that in the back of our mind and try to make that part of our decision process when building out the expenses. So I literally start with the end of the budget and then build it kind of backwards. So for FY25, enrollment shift didn't really have a big effect this year. I've broken it down into both towns, Hamilton and Wenham, and then combined the two. What you have in front of you tonight is, what you have in front of you right now is Hamilton's enrollment year over year. They've increased exactly 5 students from October 1st, 2022 to October 1st, 2023. The biggest area of increases for Hamilton is the 6th grade, where they increased 20 students, and the biggest decrease we're seeing is at the kindergarten level, where they have decreased 17 students. For Wenham, we are also seeing an increase of 12 students year over year. Their biggest increase is at the grade 2 level, where they've seen an increase of 15 students, and the grade 1 level, where they've seen a decrease of 16 students. The most fluctuation we've seen is at the elementary level, where our enrollment is increasing, and the least is at the high school, where our enrollment is decreasing just a little bit. When you combine the two, overall, we're seeing an increase of 17 resident students only. There are additional students that I'll get into in a moment, but overall, from year to year, our resident enrollment has increased 17 students. But that's not everyone that we educate. We also take in tuition-in students. from the community as well as possibly outside the community if someone pays to join our preschool program. For this fiscal year, October 1, 2023, we have 23 tuition-in pre-K students and 1 tuition-in student for the 3rd grade. I will talk a little bit more about that when we get to the revenue section. In addition to that, for October 1st, 2023, we have 63 school choice in students. That is actually down 10 students that you'll see reflected in my revenue projections in a moment. But overall, that puts us at 1,706 students, which is an increase of 12 students year over year. So what does that mean, and what are the consequences of the enrollment shift? So to calculate the enrollment shift, we take a snapshot of our student population, like I just showed you, on every October 1st for the preceding 3 years. And then you do a weighted average for the 3 years. So what ended up happening is it was a very small enrollment shift going towards Hamilton and away from Wenham. This represented a shift of 0.07%. And if you translate this into our FY24 budget, so meaning if you were to take our budget as it stands today and just roll it forward with absolutely no changes, no increases to expenses, no changes to our revenue, you only incorporate the enrollment shift, it would still result in an increase to Hamilton's budget of roughly $24,000 and a decrease to Wenham's budget of the exact same amount, which right out of the gate means an increase to Hamilton of 0.11% and a decrease to Wenham of 0.21%. This is drastically different from last year's enrollment shift. Last year's enrollment shift, I believe, was around $230,000, which already incorporated a percent or more increase or decrease for both communities. So this is much lower, which is a good thing. There's really not much of a shift this year, which means we can kind of move forward, building the rest of the budget and not worry too much about the enrollment shift because nothing really changed drastically. So I've tried to outline kind of the steps that I take while building the budget. So again, if you just start with where we ended in 24 or where we begin in 24 with an operating budget after offsets of $34.7 million, you then layer in our enrollment shift and shift the money between Hamilton and Wenham. That is our step number 1. From there, we really look at our revenues next. And when I looked at the revenues, I kind of noticed something, so I tried to break this out into 2 different slides. I'll start with explaining this one. When we look at our revenues year over year, it looks pretty drastic. It looks like we're going down $500,000 or roughly 5%. When you look at that at the surface, that doesn't look good, because what that would translate to is that the taxpayers have to pick up the revenue that we didn't collect. So whatever revenue goes down ultimately gets passed on to the taxpayers to pick up the difference. But when you look at this, if you look at the bottom line, the bottom 2 is our excess and deficiency. That's what's driving most of this. But with our excess and deficiency, the very bottom line, for every dollar in excess and deficiency, we entered an offsetting expense for FY24. So whatever difference there is in excess and deficiency this year, we're also removing expenses. So when you look at it, our E&D dropped $919,000, but at the same time, we lowered our expenses the exact same amount, so they offset each other. But it looks pretty drastic, so all I did was take the same chart and removed our E&D, because really that's a one-time thing. And again, we added in expenses to offset it, so there's really no effect. So when you remove that E&D, it looks a lot better. We're seeing a lot of growth in our revenue, probably the most I've seen in the 4th or 5th time I think I've done this budget, and we're coming in at an increase of $400,000 or roughly 6%. You heard me probably talk about this during the FY23 year-end forecast where I talked about closing roughly $600,000 in revenue to E&D. we're carrying this forward into FY25. So some of our big drivers, just to kind of start at the top, is school choice. As I mentioned before, we had a reduction of 10 students. Each one of these students is valued, we receive $5,000 for each student. So you would think we would drop around $50,000, which was what I originally had. Excuse me. But what I've also incorporated here is an additional $20,000 for the special ed increment. So not only do we receive $5,000 per pupil, but if any of those students are receiving special ed services, we also receive additional funding for each student. In fiscal 23, I believe we received about $60,000 in additional funding for that special education increment. So I've added $20,000 here for being conservative to make up for that $50,000 decrease that we would have saw because of the drop in enrollment. Next is our preschool tuition. As you heard me say during our Q1 FY24 forecast, we saw our enrollment in preschool increase. Therefore, we had to open a third pre-K classroom. With that third classroom comes additional funding because now we have more students paying us tuition. So we're seeing our preschool tuitions increase, and we're carrying that forward again into FY25. The next thing to go back to our enrollment is that one student that I pointed out in the third grade that was tuition in. That is happening this year. We're receiving that money this year. But in order for us to expend that money, it had to be built into our budget. So we can't spend that money this year. So what I'm doing here is placing it in our budget next year and removing that off the assessment to the town so we can utilize that funding and help reduce our assessment next year since we're not authorized to spend it this year. Therefore, we don't hold on to it and we get rid of it as soon as we can. Next, I'm leaving our facilities rental flat because we aren't in the business of renting out our facilities or making money, so we're really not changing that at all. Our special ed grants have seen a minor uptick this year of roughly $10,000, and we're carrying that forward into FY25 as well. We're seeing a very small reduction in Title I of just about $1,000. The next item is our circuit breaker offset. In FY23, the state reimbursed us the maximum amount for circuit breaker at 75%, so our circuit breaker amount increased pretty drastic last year. Again, that will be spent in FY25, so I've incorporated nearly a 11% increase on circuit breaker, which is really helping out our revenue increases year over year. The same thing goes true with our regional transportation. The state did very, very well last year and fully funded the regional transportation reimbursement amount, which isn't fully funded, but it's what they call fully funded.
57%.
So we're seeing an increase of roughly $30,000. For Chapter 70, I've set our amount equal to what we are going to receive in FY24. There are regulations around Chapter 70. They call it a hold harmless, so they don't decrease your Chapter 70 amount. You'll either be held equal or increase. So because that's the amount we're going to receive this year, I feel confident that that'll be at least be the amount that we receive next year, which helps us out and gives us an extra $130,000 in revenue just from Chapter 70 alone. Medicaid has been a very roller coaster ride ever since COVID. It's gone up, it's gone down, but over the past 2 years, it has stayed pretty steady around $100,000. So I feel confident that we can increase that by roughly $10,000. Our interest income, it kind of goes hand in hand with the Fed's interest rate. So they've been raising interest rates, so our interest income has grown over the past 2 years. If you look at our interest so far this year, we've already exceeded the amount I have set for the budget. But if anyone's been watching the news, the Feds didn't raise their rates last year, and now, not last year, their last meeting, and now they're talking about keeping it flat or maybe decreasing it in the future. So I have a modest increase here. I believe right now we've already earned over $100,000 this year in interest, and I'm only increasing it roughly $30,000 just to be conservative, because again, this budget covers us 18 months from now. If you look back 18 months, the interest rates were a lot lower than what they are now, so it can change drastically by June of 2025. Excuse me. So overall, again, we're doing really good with our revenue projections for FY25, increasing around 6.5%. But again, if you look at it at the surface and include our E&D, which we ultimately have to do, it doesn't look so good, which is why I broke it out in 2 different sections. So I'm just outlining my steps again. Again, the first step was to layer in the enrollment shift, and then the second step is to layer in our offsets and revenues. Right now, again, it doesn't look so good because we have to layer in the decrease of $513,000 overall in our revenue. So right out of the gate, when you only incorporate our enrollment shift and our offsets, we're already going up over 1.5%.
And that's assuming level funding?
That would be level funding, correct. Yep. But
It's not going to be level funding.
yeah, that's just how I work through to see how much we have to work with during the budget process. So kind of the last step, or not to say the last step, but the next step in the process is to then look at our expenses. So one thing I did different with this budget cycle compared to last budget cycle is add in the top inside the levy limit. Usually you don't hear me talk about levy limits and levy ceilings, and that's because that's really a town item. But this year we have a little unique situation where we're going to be in the first year of payment for the athletic turf field complex. That comes with a massive debt service payment. That was voted as a debt exclusion, which is outside of Prop 2.5 and outside of your levy limit. So I've tried to incorporate the meaning here to show everyone that even though we are adding a huge payment towards our debt service, it's outside the levy limit and outside of our normal increase. So if you get a little confused, ask, and I'll try to go over it again. But I've broken it out in 2 different sections. The first one inside the levy limit and the second one outside of it. So speaking in terms of inside the levy limit, for our expenses, we're going up roughly $727,000, which is an increase of just 1.65%. On the surface, that looks low, but as you'll see me work through it, there's reasons for that, and the biggest reason is our E&D. The one-time offsets that we added into our 24 budget, you can see is on the second to bottom line here, a negative $1.2 million. That's what really drives that number down. So on the surface, it looks good, but again, for every dollar in E&D we put in, which is a revenue, we put in the same amount for expenses. Now that our E&D is going down, we remove those expenses, so it looks a lot lower than our true reality. But again, overall, this is our gross budget this is our initial gross operating budget, coming in at $727,000 year over year.
Do you want to answer questions now?
Yeah, I would love for you to stop me. It gives me a second to take a sip.
Go back a slide then?
Yes.
Yeah, it's probably easier.
Sorry, I'm trying to read that and I can't.
Yep.
Looks like the big ones percentile-wise are instructional materials, benefits and fixed charges, and instructional leadership. All of those go up over 10%. What's included in those categories?
I can tell you briefly now. I do talk through it, but for instructional leadership, I got a phone call from the state about our end-of-year report. Our end-of-year report is a report I submit to the state at the end of the year, obviously that's what it's called, that outlines all of our expenses in every single category. So not only do I report to them where every single penny of this 44 million was spent. I also report to them where all our grant money was spent, all our revolving accounts, all the money we received from, athletic fees. Every single penny that we take in and take out, we report to them, and we break it out in probably 4,000 different line items. Within there, they said to me, you guys don't have any curriculum directors at the high school? And I said to them, we certainly have them. They go, well, you're not reporting that to us. So I'll get into the more detail behind that when we get to it, but it's a reclassification of teacher salaries to instructional leadership salaries as it relates to the 0.4 FTE for the curriculum leader. So every curriculum leader is a 1.0. They teach for 0.6 of it, and they're a curriculum leader for 0.4.
So that's balanced out somewhere.
Correct, yes, exactly. It is balanced out, so all I did was move 0.4 of every curriculum leader from the teacher category to the instructional leadership category. That's that one. The next one is instructional materials, equipment, and technology. The biggest driver there is in FY24's budget. We were able to utilize leftover ESSER and COVID money to purchase all of our one-to-one devices for 6th grade and 7th grade. There is no more COVID money, and we have now put back in the expenses that relate to the iPads for 7th graders and the Chromebook for 6th graders. I have that right? Yeah, and Chromebooks for 6th graders. So that's driving that increase. Benefits and fixed charges. I'm hearing from our insurance broker to prepare for double-digit increases on our health insurance, and that's what that one is. Did I get them all? I think I might have.
Yep.
Good on that one?
Yeah,
Ask away.
yeah. A couple of areas. The capital and fixed assets improvements is a huge drop. Can you give us an idea of what the content of the 2,273,000 was spent on, and why we're able to effectively do with less than half of that?
So let me just go back a couple to make sure I understand your question. Are you saying what was this 2.4 spent on?
No, the
Slide 12.
Slide 12,
slide 12, sorry.
operating expenses, step 3,
I think that's the E&D cost.
right there.
This one?
Yeah,
Yep.
The 2.27?
Yeah, that's the only amount that precipitously drops, and I'm just wondering.
So that's mainly the one-time E&D funds that we put in 24. So for 24, we put in approximately 1.8 million for the transfer for the capital stabilization fund.
Oh, okay.
250-ish for the second phase of our smart board replacement project. Roughly 250K off the top of my head for the theater lighting. And 130 for the Bucher Auditorium. The Bucher Auditorium, because it is under 150,000, isn't classified as a capital and fixed asset category. So that $130,000 actually sits in the Bucher Elementary School under operations and maintenance DESI category. The one that's right there. So even though it says 1.2 million, you have to add in the 130,000 that sits somewhere else to get to that 2.3 million that you saw on the first slide. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So that's what the 2.2 million is, but we don't have 2.3 million in E&D for fiscal 25. It's more like 1.5 million. So it dropped down. Of the 1.5 million, it's the same kind of scenario again, and I'll get into it. 400,000 of that went to OPEB, or we're requesting that it goes to OPEB, which sits in benefits and fixed charges DESI categories. So you have to take that roughly 400, I think it's 490, and add it to the 1 million here to get to your 1.5 that's on the first slide. It's all goes in different DESI categories. That's why it kind of tends to get confusing if you're trying to match one number to the other.
And the other thing is, our bus transportation, is that in this or is it somewhere else?
That would be in here. The transportation is going to fall under pupil services. So it's
Okay.
incorporated in this $3.6 million.
So that's a really big amount.
Decrease, that's great.
Overall, pupil services is a decrease.
not
Transportation, well,
Transportation.
when you net our general transportation with our special ed transportation, it did go down. General ed transportation, I believe, went up roughly $50,000. Our special ed transportation went down roughly 130. So overall, year to year, our transportation has dropped.
Yeah, my question on transportation was that, because historically it's been not a competitive bid. Is there anything that we can do to induce, excite someone else to bid so that we have a chance of driving that down?
So I believe in one of our prior meetings, the MASC was trying to lobby the state to look into that.
Wasn't the state trying to take that
Yeah,
problem on?
Yeah, so
I'm
if-
actually going to report out on that in my chair report, but yeah, that,
Okay.
it did pass, yes, so it's something that the MASC is lobbying for,
Okay.
more competitive bidding.
So it would be to kind of lobby the MASC and our representatives to.
But the fact that it was there at
into
the MASC is indication that we're not the only district that is experiencing this, where there's only one bid.
That's statewide.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
So what the slide I just had up before was our operating budget inside the levy limit. Then you have your debt service budget, which has two areas to it. It has both inside the levy limit and outside the levy limit. So every single project you see on the left, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, out of all 6 of them, the town of Wenham had a debt exclusion for all 6 of them. The town of Hamilton had a debt exclusion for 5 out of the 6. For the Cutler feasibility study, they did not vote it in as a debt exclusion. So just for the town of Hamilton and just for the Cutler feasibility study, their portion of the interest payment is calculated inside the levy limit. Does that make sense?
It does, but only
Yeah.
Oh my
explained
God.
it
Make
once
things
already.
easier.
There's a reason, but I don't want to get into the reason. You can ask them at the big meeting and
Ask them.
have them explain it.
Lab chairs next week.
So this is the debt inside the levy limit. So when you add our operating budget and our debt service inside the levy limit, that's the third step here. Ultimately, our initial budget, we are requesting $35.5 million, which is an increase of, that's not the increase. It is the increase, sorry. 761,000, which represents a 3.72% increase year over year. That translates into a 3.88% increase for Hamilton and a 3.41 increase for Wenham. And again, that difference is now 2 reasons. One was the enrollment shift, and now the second reason is because only the Cutler feasibility study is included in Hamilton's number. That's why you're seeing a bigger number for Hamilton compared to Wenham. Okay, so that was inside the levy limit. There's a reason I never talk about levy limits, because it starts to get confusing. Now you're going to go outside the levy limit. All these numbers were voted as debt exclusions at town meeting and at the ballot. So out of all the projects, all of them are considered outside the levy limit. But again, if you look right here at Hamilton's Cutler feasibility study, it's a 0 because it's included on the other slide as inside the levy limit. And again, the reason we did this is because if you look at our total debt service for FY24, it was roughly $600,000. If you now look at the FY25, it's $2.1 million. That's a $1.5 million increase, which in and of itself accounts for over a 4% increase to our budget year over year. But it's important to break this out in my mind because the voters, this is what they voted for. They voted to exclude this from Prop 2.5. So when I look at this, whatever increase on here was approved by the voters last year, and we're not held to it within the levy limit. Does that kind of make sense as to why I broke it out? Okay, so now I'm going to talk about the athletic field for a moment. We were approved for a $15 million project. Of the $15 million, at this time, we've dedicated, or we will dedicate, the $1.8 million, or hopefully we will if you guys approve it. There will be a vote in the future for you to transfer that capital stabilization fund to the athletic complex fund, but the idea is hopefully you will do that. So out of the 15 million, you remove the 1.8 million. In addition to that, we received approval for $800,000 from the town of Hamilton's CPA funds and $400,000 from the town of Wenham's, as well as we've been told the donations are up to about 1.7 million now. So when you take those items off, it leaves just over $10 million for the debt that we are gonna take out. So I'm just gonna use a round number, we're gonna borrow $10 million. Of that $10 million, it's a 10-year pay down. So that means every year we're gonna pay $1 million in principal to lower that amount. That's your principal payment right there, your $1 million. Right now, we're seeing interest rates on these notes at about 5%. We're hoping it'll come in at more like 4.5%, but to be conservative with our initial budget, I've set it at a 5% interest rate, which means an interest payment of roughly $500,000. So the athletic complex alone is adding $1.5 million to our debt, which is making our percent increase look pretty drastic, which again, why I broke out inside the levy limit and outside. Okay, so that is the debt service side of it.
Are those all 10 years?
Say it again, sorry.
Are those all 10-year?
You're allowed to borrow up to the life of the thing you're purchasing. So I've been told that for a turf field, you can go up to 12 years, but the longer you spread it out, the more your interest payment is.
Yeah, but like looking at like the Cutler roof,
Oh, sorry, the other one,
2013
sorry.
or whatever, you know, are we coming to the end of that term?
So for the Cutler roof, I believe it is, I can look it up, but I don't think it ends till 2032 or something.
So that's like a 20
It's still,
year.
there's still like a good 6 years on it, I think. Same with the Bucher boiler.
I think this could be a little, this could, if we had like how long,
Sure, I can put end dates on all of them.
Yeah.
I have them here, I can kind of add them to it so
so
everyone.
I think this is gonna be an important slide moving forward. So if we could try and
Yeah.
help explain that out.
Yeah, I'll kind of just add the end date
Yeah,
over
good.
there or
Excellent,
something.
thank you.
So I know the first two, I believe, end the same fiscal year, which is sometime in the 2030s. These two projects here, after FY, I believe they end in FY27, but I'll add those to it as well. The Cutler feasibility study, that $1 million payment, we are planning, if the project gets approved, that $1 million gets rolled into the big payment. But that'll kind of be to be
Oh,
determined.
that's what I'm
In the-
sort of thinking of ahead of
Yeah,
like,
yep. Easy enough to add them. I could do it if, either way, I'll add them, yep.
So just to clarify for the notes, so you want the total debt service for the whole 10 years?
Yeah, just to sort of have the end date, so if we have to start explaining out, athletic complex, and then whatever this building might be, that number is going to be pretty overwhelming at first. But, if we show over time that these are going to drop off and these are going to drop off, which will help ease the burden, I just think that's something that.
I
would be
think
of
just
great
for, I
interest.
think you're just looking for the end dates of
Yeah.
all these, not necessarily spelled out year by year what's going to happen each
Yeah,
year. Just
no,
the end
no.
dates of when they're going to drop off.
Yeah, because
Okay.
that'll free up the
Yeah.
funds.
Right.
Okay.
Oh, we have some of the funds.
Correct. In terms of the timing of things, you're really not looking at the first two projects, you're looking at the middle two.
Yeah.
The Winthrop sprinkler and the FY21 projects will probably roll off if the new school comes on.
Yeah.
The other two will be a
Well, I
couple
mean,
years
that-
after.
That's an important number, right? That's a
Yeah, definitely.
couple $100,000, it definitely helps.
Yep, easy enough to add. I will add it for the big meeting. It's not moving now. So now I've added both of them together just to show what our actual assessment will be to the towns, both inside the debt limit, inside the levy limit and outside the levy limit. Overall, we're looking at a $2.8 million increase, or roughly 8.07%. Again, this is broken down into our operating budget of roughly 3.62% and our new debt service of a whopping 263% increase. So now I'm going to take kind of a deeper dive into the expenses. What I've done here is very, very detailed. I have literally accounted for every single dollar in change from one year to the next. There are even items listed in here for $75. So when you're talking about $75 on a $44 million budget, it's obviously nothing, but I've literally accounted for everything. I am certainly not going to talk about everything on here, but if there's questions, don't hesitate to ask. After I made this, like I normally do, I bored my wife and gave the presentation to her, and she said, you should really make a summary slide, which is what I printed out for you guys. It kind of categorizes all of these things into buckets and has it all on one sheet. In addition to that, I also did it for staffing. I don't know if that's helpful, but I just wanted it all on one slide for you guys, so at least you have it on one page instead of spread out into 25 different slides. Okay, so I'm really only gonna try to talk about like the one or two major changes in all these categories, but again, if you have a question, let me know. I've broken this out by every single DAC location, and within every single DAC location, it's broken out by the 11 different DESI categories, or 9 of them. So again, it's very detailed, but I'm gonna try not to bore you and go a little quicker for Jen so she doesn't get bored too, and try to go through it quicker. So for the Bucher Elementary School, we are seeing an increase of roughly $158,000, which translates into a 5.5% increase. For our instructional leadership category, the biggest drivers are our COLAs. These are the cost of living increases that are kind of set within our collective bargaining agreements and within our individual administrative agreements. For our teachers category, we are seeing a substantial increase of $157,000. This is mainly driven by the addition of a 1.0 FTE English as a second language teacher, but this is a reallocation from the central office. So this position for our 24 budget was placed in the central office DAC because we thought they were going to be spread across multiple schools. When FY24, started, it was all at the Bucher Elementary School. So this one position now goes directly into Bucher. You'll see a reduction when we get to it to central office, but nonetheless, it's driving this increase here. On top of that, our biggest two things, again, are our COLA increases and our STEP increases, accounting for almost a $90,000 increase alone. For our other teaching services, we are seeing an increase of $97,000. The two big items here is our new ESP contract that we just approved tonight did add some expenses, roughly $42,000 for this category. In addition, which you'll see across the 3 elementary schools, is for FY24, and I know I discussed it, I believe, in our Q1 forecast, is for our ESPs at the elementary level. We kind of reorganized everyone. Not everyone. We reorganized some of our programs across schools. So a program that was at Cutler got moved over to Winthrop. A program that was at Winthrop got moved over to Bucher, and the TAs kind of followed them throughout the process. So you're going to see kind of pluses and minuses throughout as it relates to the TAs. In addition, when I get to Cutler, you're going to see that we did trade in 1 teacher for additional TAs. So we did go up overall on our TAs and down on our teachers because of this reorganization. But for the Bucher Elementary School, they gained 1.0 FTE of an ESP position. For professional development, we have 2 big drivers. One of them is our COLA for $2,500, which is being offset by a turnover of savings of $9,000. I'm sorry, that should be at the bottom of the slide. We had 1 turnover as it relates to professional development, and that staff member came in at $9,000 lower than the previous one. I'm sorry, I skipped a line. So in instructional leadership and throughout this document, you're going to see my wording, the additional 0.5 split for FY24. Again, my wife had no idea what that was, so I thought I would try to add a slide and explain to you what that is, because it does have a lot of value, and my hope is that nobody does this again, so I want to educate you on what happened. So for a 1-1 split, that's the COLA. So on day 1, we agreed to give, in this example, give the teachers' collective bargaining agreement a 1-1 split, which means on day 1 they get a 1% increase, and on day 92, which is halfway through the school year, they get 1% more added to it. So in my example, I looked at our teachers and said, what is the most popular step for our teachers on the salary scale? That's a M75 step 12. That's where the majority of our teachers sit on our salary scale. So I use that as our example. So for the first half of FY24, we had a salary of $100,688. They're paid this amount for half the year, which means we end up paying them $50,344 for the first half of the school year. Once the second half comes, they get their additional 1% COLA, which means they have a new full year salary rate of $101,695, but they only earn half of that for the second half of the year, which means they get $58,48, which means in total for fiscal 24, we will pay them $101,192. That's what we'll pay them. That's what we budgeted in our 24 budget. However, once you go into FY25, even if they got a 0% COLA for 25 and nothing changed, their salary already goes to that higher second half amount, the $101,695. So right out of the gate, we pay them $504 more, which means a 0.5% increase right away. So even though this may have saved us a little money in FY24, for FY25, we already have to come up with a 0.5% increase because of the 1-1 split. Not only is it pain, but it is horrible to process on the payroll side. I don't love splits. And this is the second reason why. The first reason is because it's a nightmare to process, and the other reason is because you have to now make up the money in the following fiscal year. Overall, throughout the district, in total, this cost us an additional $85,000 to make up this 0.5% for all collective bargaining agreements that had the 1-1 split or a split in general. So I wanted to try to explain what that is and hopefully make you hate it as much as me.
I have a feeling that's going to come back.
Yeah. I mean, it saves either way. Okay, moving on with Bucher, we have a small decrease in our instructional materials. For our guidance, counseling, and testing, the major drivers here, again, are the step increases, our COLA, and the 1-1 split. For pupil services, we are seeing an increase of roughly $8,000. $4,000 of it relates to a prior year, meaning FY24, salary scale advancement for a staff member that moved from a master's step 11, to a master's 15 step 12, because if you look at our salary schedule, the master's column does not have a 12th step. When I made the 24 budget, I gave the person a column change, but I forgot to give them a step. So we have to make up for it in our 25 budget and actually we did give them the step and pay for it, but now we have to fund the difference due to the increase in their step. In addition, we are seeing the same thing with our COLA increases and our 1-1 split. For maintenance and operations, we are seeing a decrease at Bucher of $111,000, but this is driven by a one-time E&D cost for the auditorium out here. As I mentioned, it does not meet the threshold to go on the capital asset DESI category. That's why it sits here in the Bucher Elementary School. For the Cutler Elementary School, we are seeing a year-over-year increase of $76,000, or roughly 2.4%. The same thing for instructional leadership. It's driven by COLAs and steps. For teachers, we are seeing an increase of $48,000. For here, we are requesting a new investment for FY25 to add a 1.0 LBLD teacher. Our needs for these students have increased at the Cutler Elementary School, and to meet those services, we really do need to add this teacher to that building. In addition to that, we are seeing increases again for our COLAs and STEP, adding up to nearly another $100,000 in increases. Some of this is being offset by a planned reduction this year to our LBLD teacher, along with the reorganization of our elementary specialists and that trade-in for the 1.0 teacher for those TAs, as I explained with the elementary ESP reorg. For the other teaching services, we did seek your approval, I believe, 2 or 3 school committees ago to trade in our 0.61 FTE library TA for a 1.0 library teacher. So you're seeing both the additional cost for the teacher as well as the reduction to the TA. In addition to that, we have a pretty good driver with staff turnover. There was only 1 turnover at the school, and it saved us nearly $30,000, which is a pretty good savings from 1 position. This is again kind of being offset by the switch on the elementary ESPs. So at the Cutler Elementary School, 3 of the ESPs left Cutler and went to Winthrop and Bucher, so you'll see a reduction here and an increase at Bucher and Winthrop. Okay, moving on, we are seeing a reduction in our professional development of $9,500, again, mainly driven by staff turnover and COLAs. A lot of this is the same, so I'm just going to kind of jump over to pupil services, where the same thing happened. We are seeing increases in our COLA for the base and COLA for our lunch monitors. Some of this is being offset by the FY24 planned conversion of our LPN to our nurse. So during the building of our 24 budget, we replaced the then current LPN with a teacher nurse, and we put an estimated amount for their salary, but when we actually hired them, it resulted in savings of $9,000. The person we hired was less than what we budgeted for, so those savings get passed on to FY25. For operations and maintenance, which I forgot to say in Bucher, just like we're all seeing at our homes, our electricity and our gas bills are increasing. So you're going to see this throughout every single location, that our utility costs are increasing. In addition to that, we have our normal increases for COLA and increases to our supplies and materials for custodians. For the Winthrop Elementary School, we are seeing a pretty substantial increase here. Again, I will go through it, but it's mainly driven by some of the ESP movement and the additions that I will go through in a moment. But overall, it is a $304,000 increase, or roughly 2.25%. The same thing again with instructional services. I'm going to jump down to teachers, where we're seeing an increase of just under $100,000. A lot of this is COLA again for $70,000, and the addition of the third pre-K classroom. So with the third pre-K classroom, we had to hire an additional teacher, and because we are now housing more students in each classroom, there was a need for a second ESP in each of the 3 classrooms. So that's where you see over here the addition of 2.4 pre-K TAs. The reason it's 2.4 is because our pre-K program doesn't run a full school day, so they're not 1.0s. I think they're 0.7s, and there's 3 of them. Comes out to 2.4, I think. All right, I did that one. I'm on other teaching services. So the new ESP contract here cost us about $62,000. And in addition, we have new stipends within the ESP contract. Those mainly sit at Winthrop, where a lot of our special programs sit. So that's where a majority of the stipends ended, with an additional $13,500. Moving on to the rest of Winthrop, it's really a lot of the same here. Again, COLAs and the 1-1 split. And again, utilities on our operations and maintenance. For the Miles River Middle School, it's increase of roughly $365,000, or roughly 7%. This goes to what Dave asked earlier about the instructional leadership with our curriculum leaders. So I'll try to explain this one in a little more detail. Again, there's 7 curriculum leaders. Out of the 7, each of them teach 0.6 in the classroom and 0.4 in the, as a curriculum leader. The unique thing, though, is Miles River houses 2 of the 7 curriculum leaders. So that means before this budget started, 0.8 of their salaries sat at Winthrop, which is, Miles River, which is why you see down here in the teachers category a reduction of 0.8. That's because they housed the 2 curriculum leaders. So their teachers category goes down 0.2, but their curriculum leader category goes up 1.4, which is 7 times 0.4 split 2 ways between the middle school and the high school. That's where most of our instructional leadership increase is coming from. You're going to see the same thing happen at the high school when I get to it. For teachers, again, we're seeing substantial increases in COLA, costing us roughly $106,000, as well as steps of $142,000. We also had a planned reduction to 1 teaching staff member at Miles River. We didn't know who that member was going to be. When FY24 came, we did not reduce the budget enough. And we had to increase it by another $12,000 to make up for that difference.
Question.
Yes.
So you obviously incorporated COLA and the step increases. I'm assuming there's going to be a new contract with the teachers. Is there any provision in these numbers, an estimate, or will that not impact fiscal year 24 and only 25? I don't know about the timing.
It'll impact 25, and we will have to figure it out within the numbers we have here. So if it comes in at a different rate, which it certainly will, we will have to maneuver something to make up for it. Something will have to go.
To give, okay. But that contract will affect
This budget. It'll start with this budget that we're building right now. Their contract ends the end of fiscal 24 and starts with fiscal 25, what we're building right now.
Thank you.
I think I hit most of these. For professional development, what we tried to do a few years ago is for every teaching staff member, we budgeted $250 per FTE for the building-based PD. We did this at the elementary level. We didn't do it at the high school, middle school. We are correcting that now because of the historical funds that are left over at the end of the year. We're not spending our PD money, and the high school and middle school had more than $250 per FTE, so we reduced that here and we reduced it at the high school as well. We're still on Miles River. There's really the same going on here again. We have savings from staff turnover as well as costs for COLAs and step increases. For pupil services, one thing I do want to mention is we incorporated the cost of the intramural director's stipend into the general fund budget. The reason for this is the intramural director oversees 4 different seasons of intramurals and oversees almost 20 different teams. The expense related to their stipend is sprinkled into every single member's user fee, and it starts to get confusing depending if we don't run a sport this year, do we have to increase the fees for somebody else to make up for the intramural director's stipend? So we had a request from the principal of Miles River to pay for the stipend to get that confusion out of there, and on top of that to help lower user fees. You'll see in other areas here that we really tried to do a couple things to drop the cost families have to pay out of pocket just to kind of do activities throughout the district. This is one of the spots. I do know of at least 3 or 4 that I'll point out when we get there to try to help lower the out-of-pocket costs for families. Operations and maintenance, again, is utilities and COLAs. So moving on to the high school, we have an increase of roughly $70,000 or 1%. Here you see, again, the 1.4 FTEs for the curriculum leaders that were reclassed from the teachers category into instructional leadership. And again, just to point out the reallocation of 0.2 of the FTEs because 5 of the 7 curriculum leaders were at the high school and 0.4 of each of their 5 moved over and was split. In addition to that, our COLAs at the high school under the teachers category is our biggest increase of roughly $122,000. This is offset by savings of 3 staff member, turnover of 3 staff members of roughly $92,000. For our other teaching services, our new ESP contract at the high school costs roughly $18,500. Adding our COLA and our steps to that, we have an offset or a reduction to our online courses because less students, I believe, are taking courses online, so we get to buy a smaller package of the online courses, a smaller number of seats. So Brian has recommended that we drop that budget. In addition to that, we were able to reduce the ESPs up there by 1.0 FTEs, saving roughly $31,000. And again, you see the reduction to the professional development because of the historical funds that have been left over. For guidance, counseling, testing, we're seeing a reduction of $34,000. This is mainly driven by a reduction of 0.5 FTEs counselor that was split between the high school and the middle school. Continuing with the high school, we are seeing an increase to pupil services, mainly driven by our COLAs on our stipends and COLAs on the base. For operations and maintenance, again, it's the same thing. I don't want to be repetitive. I'll just utilities and COLAs. For athletics, we are seeing a substantial increase of $71,000 because their expenses are increasing. The athletic director, Mr. Genualdo, has made a request to add additional trainers. He explained to us that a lot of times there's multiple games going on, which requires multiple trainers. Right now, we only have one. So he's requested that we add additional trainers to help support the multiple games that are going on. In addition to that, he's asked that we fund assistant coaches for the teams that don't have assistant coaches. And that's really for the same reason. If there's a safety issue or if something happens and the head coach, the only coach there, has to attend to that student or that athlete, there's nobody else there to attend to the rest of the team. So this includes funding for all sports teams to have an additional assistant coach that don't have one right now. In addition to that, he has requested additional money to replace the cost of uniforms and keep our fields, keep the field maintenance up to date. Our uniform costs have nearly doubled in the past 3 years, just the cost of the materials and what it takes to get them produced. I think I got everything on that. And with all that, a lot of these additional expenses sit outside of user fees. So these expenses will all be picked up by district funds, and the user fee total is going down $2,600. Did you have a question, Jen, or no?
I thought with the new fields going in next summer or spring,
Spring.
they would be under construction for a whole year, or pretty close to it. So why do we need $18,000 for additional field maintenance? The fields aren't going to be being used.
I believe the plan is they're done by next spring,
So
right?
the additional field maintenance, I'm going to use the best example is the soccer fields that are around the communities.
Okay.
We're really going to, because we're going to now shift our teams off of our fields onto all of these other fields. And there's really a cost to that, of fixing the fields, helping them with the repairs.
Yeah.
We're gonna basically triple the usage in some places. So it's really, at the end of a soccer season, we'll contribute to put those fields back into usable shape for the next year, so.
Thank you.
Yeah, our kids are gonna be moving all over the place,
All
so
over
we're
the
gonna be picking up fields wherever we can, and it's gonna be part of the deal to contribute to the maintenance costs.
Okay, moving on to central office. Overall, we're seeing an increase of roughly $26,000 or 0.66%. A lot of this is driven by COLAs and new district-wide software that we're implementing, as well as some increases on our longevity and the 1-1 split. For instructional leadership, again, we're trying to reduce fees to students, and we're incorporating the chorus director stipend into the general fund budget to help lower the chorus user fees at the elementary level. For teachers, this is the other side of the ESL. As I mentioned at Bucher, this is where the other side. So it was added to Bucher and it was taken away from the central office. For other teaching services, we have seen a pretty good increase to our long-term sub and short-term sub usage, specifically our long-term subs. There are more FMLAs occurring right now and a higher need for our long-term sub situation. In addition, we had an ELL tutor reorganization that I believe I might have left off at the middle school and high school, but I'll explain it right now. In FY24's budget, for our ESL, ELL population, we originally budgeted 1.0 FTE teacher and 0.95 tutors. There was a request by Stacy Busick, our student services director, to trade in the .95 tutors for a .5 ESL teacher. That .5 ESL teacher is split .25 middle school and .25 high school. So I didn't mention it, but it is on the slide for the high school and middle school, the addition of the .25. This is the opposite, the reduction of the tutors.
Oh, I just had a question. Did we not have a course director stipend before?
We did, but it was funded by user fees.
Okay.
Yeah, so each, because all the schools, I believe, come to Bucher, right?
Yeah.
For chorus.
Yep.
Again, that stipend was spread out amongst all the schools and amongst the user fees. Right now, we have it set up to help the middle school with one stipend, help the high school. We thought it was only kind of equitable to help the elementary school as well and try to lower some user fees there too. There's not a ton of user fees at the elementary level outside of, field trips and stuff. So one of the areas is chorus and band. So we just kind of took one of them and tried to fund it, as long as you guys are okay with it.
Yeah.
Okay. So for professional development, there was an increase in the ESP contract for tuition reimbursement. I believe we, at the FY24, we funded it for about $6,000, and the new contract calls for $15,000, which is an increase of roughly $9,000. Excuse me. In addition, we are seeing a reduction in our substitutes, but only as it relates to PD. We're finding that teachers are going out less during the workday, and therefore there's less need for a substitute to replace them while they seek professional development. We are seeing an increase in our instructional materials around our 504 contracted services, as well as requests for new ELL textbooks and curriculum materials. For our guidance, counseling, and testing, we do have requests to move expenses for Dibbles, Early Bird, and Forefront, which is all kind of testing and assessment software that we utilize that will now kind of be all centralized within Jen Clifford's office, the Director of Teaching and Learning, right? Okay. Moving on to pupil services, this is where you see our transportation. Our general student transportation per our contract is increasing by $51,000. This is being offset a little bit by the $18,000 reduction to our homeless foster care transportation. So in fiscal 23, I believe, we did have a foster care child in the district, and you're required to transport them. That falls out of our normal contract. We were unsure if that student was going to remain for FY24, so we kept the funding there for it. They are not here in FY24, so we're removing it for the 25 budget. In addition to that, since school lunch has been free and the cost has been picked up by either the federal government in the first year of COVID or the state government after that, we have not had to bail out the cafeteria ever since lunch has been free. So we are now reducing that to zero. We no longer feel that we are going to have to bail out the cafeteria because they are now turning at least a little bit of a profit. Another area I want to point out where we're trying to help families out is, for the first time, we want to establish a kind of a scholarship fund for families that are in need and can't afford some of the events that go on during school. If you guys ultimately leave this here and approve it, we will develop kind of procedures on how a family would request this money, but it's our hope that this stays because we are getting more requests as things kind of increase in costs, that families are struggling a little bit. So with this, we're hoping to utilize this pot of money to kind of help out families so kids can kind of stay engaged with the activities that happen throughout the school day, as well as after school and field trips and prom. It would kind of be everything where we don't have anything at this moment. outside of our scholarships for athletic user fees. Right now, that's the only scholarship money sits within athletics for user fees. This would be on top of that.
So that wouldn't go to athletics at
This
all?
would not go, sorry,
Oh.
this would not go to athletics.
Okay.
This would strictly be outside of athletics.
Can I ask a question about that? I, first of all, really applaud that. I wonder if 10,000 is enough, but I think, you know, maybe for the first year, we can see how it goes. But I would love, like a report on, how much was spent. We don't need, you know, to know where it went or whatever, but I would love to know, like, did you think it was enough? Like, what happened? Did you feel that it needed to be increased? That kind of thing?
We don't have anything right now.
Right, so I think it's a good start. I applaud it completely and
Yeah, this will
fully
be
in
its
support
own
of it.
separate account, so we'll
Yep.
be able to see at the end of fiscal
Yeah.
25 immediately how much we utilized of it. Is that what you mean?
Yeah,
Or-
exactly,
yeah.
exactly. And if there were more requests than we could handle.
Yeah, definitely. Yep. Yeah, that'll be easy enough. For maintenance and operations, we are seeing an increase of about $28,000. This is mainly due to a trade-in of a district-wide night floating custodian to a district-wide maintenance worker. If you go to their collective bargaining agreement, there's 2 different salaries for each one. It's a little bit more, so that's driving up the cost. The other big thing, which I was shocked about when I saw it, is for whatever reason, our internet services are being charged off to a technology account that has nothing to do with internet. So right now, we're moving it into the correct category where the internet charges should be. I don't know why it was there, but just trying to correct it. For benefits and fixed charges is one of our biggest increases, coming in at roughly $890,000, but more than half of it relates to OPEB. So with talking with, I'm going to come to that when I get to the next thing. I'm going to talk about E&D and the offsets on the next slide, so I'll come back to OPEB, but that's what this main driver is here. In addition to that, our biggest driver, like always, is our health insurance premium increase. For our mandatory Essex County retirement contribution, which is our pension liability, I have put in an estimate, I believe, of a 7.5% increase, which equates to $68,000. In addition to that, we have our normal OPEB increase that we've kind of committed to every year to increase it by $50,000. So here sits our normal increase. In addition to that, some of this is being offset by a reduction that I kind of negotiated with our workers' comp insurance policy to get a lower premium rate, and we saw savings of approximately $20,000. In addition to that, we are having a very difficult time recruiting crossing guards, and Wenham was kind enough to install the lights that allow kids to cross the street, so we don't feel that we need as many crossing guards as we do, and historically we haven't utilized 2 of the 4 that are in the budget, so 2 remain and 2 are being removed.
The health insurance.
Yep.
What's the year-over-year percentage gain just for that line item?
I believe it's 9.9%, I think. It's on the other exhibit. I can pull it up if you want me to, but I believe it's about a 9%.
I'll trust your memory.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay, so our capital assets, capital acquisitions and improvements of our fixed assets. This is where all of our E&D offset sits, well, the majority of it. Just like I had mentioned before, OPEB and the Bucher Auditorium sit outside of here. Bucher Auditorium because it doesn't meet the dollar threshold, and OPEB because that's more of a benefit charge and not a asset charge. So what we're seeing here, which is what is driving a lot, which is what's driving the small gross increase year over year, is the fact that we are reducing our overall E&D by $1.2 million. So what we put in FY24 compared to what we have for FY25 is $1.2 million less in E&D revenue, I'll call it. So at the same time, we reduced our E&D expenses by the exact same dollar amount. So in FY24, in this category, we included $1.7 million in a capital stabilization fund transfer, $275,000 for the smart board replacements, and $300,000 for the theater and lighting upgrades. For FY25, we discussed this a little bit in capital on what should we do with this E&D money. It was ultimately decided to try to do a couple things with it instead of one thing. So what we ended with is return or match the $770,000 that we returned to the towns for the past 2 or 3 years in a row, again, which is incorporated in here, to finish the smart board replacement project, which was a 4-year project at roughly $250,000 to $300,000 a year. This will be the last phase of the 4-phase project. In addition, we're putting aside $225,000 just to replace aging equipment across the district. And then the rest of the money, which is roughly $970,000, I think, we decided to split it between a capital stabilization and OPEB. That's why you see the exact same amount, $470,095 and $470,095. We just split the remaining balance between capital stabilization again and OPEB again, but what we did in the fiscal year before that. So this will make our OPEB account almost the highest for a regional school district in our area, which is a very good thing. Once it's final, I think I'm going to call Manchester Essex and brag to them, because I think they're the only one that has more than us at this time, but I think we'll beat them if this goes through. Okay, for special education, we are seeing a reduction of $12,000 year over year. For our instructional leadership, it's the same story. Our COLAs and our 1% increase, as well as a decrease in our Medicare contracted services. For our teachers DESE category, I had discovered over this past summer that for summer school, we were charging 100% of everyone's salary to a teacher's line. Both teachers, TAs, nurses, secretaries, they were all going to the same line. So I reported out to the state that we had absolutely no ESPs in our summer school program. So I asked Stacy Busick to correct that charge. So we're splitting that up between our teacher category and our other teaching services category. That's why you see the same amount. The money that should have gone to ESPs and that line is now being moved over, and it's being reduced at the teachers DESE category. In addition to that, there is a far less need for home services and tutoring aid salaries. So Stacy Busick has put in a reduction of $45,000 for additional salaries for tutoring in the home. In addition to that, our instructional materials for the Student Services Office is going up approximately $15,000. This has to do with, again, the fluctuation of tutoring services from one line to the other, as well as increased testing in supplies and materials used in the classroom. For guidance, counseling, and testing, it's the same thing. We're going up because of our COLA and because of that 1-1 split. This is, again, the other side of the transportation that I mentioned earlier. She is forecasting a reduction in her transportation needs for FY25 to the tune of $136,000. And last, we are seeing, and I don't want to use this word, but I'm good, a modest increase in tuitions compared to prior years. It's usually much bigger than this. If you remember this year, the OSD approved upwards of a 14% increase. I believe for next year it's 4.5%. I don't think that number's final yet, but that's what they've kind of floated out there. So we're not seeing as big as an increase as we have in prior years. I believe last but not least is technology, where you've heard me talk a little bit about it already. Overall, we're seeing an increase of $13,000. This has to do with COLAs, that reduction of the internet, as I mentioned before, and a reduction or reallocation of a lot of our hardware. Again, we have our 7th grade iPads that we're adding back in and our 6th grade Chromebooks. That's what's driving a lot of the instructional materials increase year over year. A lot of this is offset by our reduction in contracted services. So what this is for technology is we contract out the rewiring of a lot of devices, a lot of the Wi-Fis that we installed. I believe the year before required an uptick in contracted services to wire everything. Those are most of them are installed now, so he's reducing the overall need for contracted services in his department. Okay, so that wraps up kind of the whole expense side of it. So I'm just gonna kind of bring it back for a second and say, everything inside the levy limit, this all translates into an increase of roughly 3.7%, which in the DESI category translates into $722,000 year over year, spread out this way, and then the same chart in DAC form, really how we manage our expenses. And then I've included the printout. I just threw it in the slide as kind of a summary of all the FTE changes, as well as the summary of kind of the big ins and outs that are over $10,000 that you have printed out. Lastly, I just want to remind everyone of kind of what's coming up. 2 big important dates is the ones in bold. January 4th, that's when we vote in a tentative budget or not, and February 8th, when we vote in the final budget, as well as kind of the quintuple board meetings on November 29th, and another one in there, January 30th, maybe. November 29th, sorry. Yeah.
So, okay, I know we talked about this before. December 6th is the meeting, not December 7th.
Correct, the Wednesday.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's,
And that's
just
when
wanna
the
make
5
sure I have that
principals will come in
100%.
to present.
Yep.
Yep. So that does it.
Yay. Woo. Jeez.
That is a marathon.
Did you just say that was
Wow.
25 minutes?
An hour and
Hour.
25.
Hour and 25.
I was gonna have to disagree.
Wow. Wow.
All right, well,
I know it's a
Can
lot.
you come do my budget at my house?
Yeah, I know
That's
it's a
why-
lot. We're pretty much gonna have budget presentations almost every single meeting from now till February. There is one meeting in there that I didn't schedule anything specific, just to take requests if you guys have any need for additional information. But from here on out, either I'll be presenting or someone in the leadership team will be presenting their portion of the budget to you. So if you guys don't have any more specific questions,
No, not right now.
okay. Thank you guys.
thank you.
Pretty
Thank
thorough,
you very
yes.
much.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Okay, thank you.
Appreciate it.
What was that?
Something extra.
All right. Okay, next up, committee reports. Capital Finance?
We did not meet this week.
Okay.
Just a mistake with publishing the agenda, so.
Oh, okay. All right.
When is our next meeting? I'm sorry to put you on the spot there.
I can Google it. I can look it up on
You're looking when the next meeting is?
Yeah.
I got it here. I just gotta open it.
December 20th, is that right, Penny?
Let me
That's like the quintuple board chairs.
Yeah, that's the-
Oh, no, that's November 20th, is that?
It's the 20th.
December 20th?
December 20th.
From 3:30 to 4:30. That's what I thought.
Okay,
Yeah, December 20th. Yep.
okay,
Before 30, great.
all right, thank you. Policy,
The meeting on December 4.
December
Just
4th.
Posting the agenda. Janelle's going to post it tomorrow, I think.
Okay, great. Negotiations,
We just,
we just did some big stuff.
just did the thing.
Excellent. So I asked Julia if she would give us a brief secretary report on the status of our minutes and all our subcommittees.
Are you going to make me read all the dates of the minutes that are missing as punishment for me not doing my minutes? Or can I just say the amount of
You could just say the
meetings?
amount, but-
Okay.
And then if the committee is agreeable, you could say the amount and then maybe send it out to the committee. But
Yes.
I do want you to go through each committee, because I
Yeah,
I
oh
do
yeah,
want us to sort of
definitely.
talk about it, so go ahead.
Okay, so the Capital Finance Subcommittee, of which I'm the secretary, has 16 outstanding minutes.
Okay,
But 6 of these missing minutes have been drafted and are ready for approval. And I have the list of dates. And
Okay.
I'll happy to send it to the committee.
great. And I guess does the capital, which is, I guess is just you and Jen at this point, is the
Yes.
capital.
So Jen, I
So-
can send those to you.
And,
And the
I
missing
guess-
dates and the ones that I drafted up.
All right, and so my question is, what's the plan for the ones that are, other than, like, that's
Missing?
great that, for the missing ones? Do you guys have
I
a-
want to have them all done by the end of this month.
Okay, great. All right, great, thank you. All right,
I just realized that this is the actual signature copy of the protocols.
oh, no, it's just a photocopy.
Oh,
Yep,
really?
yep.
Okay.
Sign the photo.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah, there's-
Thank you for that, though, I mean,
Oh.
that would have
Yeah,
been,
because
yeah.
it still doesn't have Julia and.
Yeah, no, it's not, it's not, it's just a
Okay.
photocopy.
So the plan is that I
Okay,
will have them at least drafted by the end of this month. And then I guess we could vote on,
Can we vote with only 2 people in a committee?
yes,
oh, so we'll vote on those December 20th, I guess.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, vote on drafted minutes December 20th. Okay.
great, all right.
The negotiations subcommittee has no outstanding minutes.
That's right.
Right.
So good for you.
Yes, but we had quite a few, and we got it all caught up, and we did actually something very similar to what you're saying. We just set a deadline, and we got it done, so.
And the policy legislative subcommittee has 4 outstanding minutes from the dates, if you want me to give them to you. November 1st, 2022. They're kind of random. November 1st, 2022. November 21st, 2022. January 17 of this year, February 13 of this year. But 2 of these 4 minutes have been drafted and are ready for approval. January and February of this year.
And so it sounds like two of those, it sounds like they're quite old. They're almost a year old.
Yes, and I was not the secretary,
Right.
but I can try to
Right.
look
Well,
up some minutes.
so I might just say, you
We have
guys
to-
could
we can
decide, but
decide.
in other words, that, between the 2 of you, if you guys need help or you need to
Oh,
ask
right,
people
were
about
we,
it.
but either, are we
Right,
even
you
on
might
the
not have
committee?
been there, so, but just let us, maybe
Back
let
then,
us know.
No, we weren't.
Okay, so the action item is when we meet December 4th, we'll decide what to do
Right.
about those old minutes.
Right, and you
And then
certainly.
we'll vote to approve the January and February minutes.
Yep,
Cool.
that's great. And you certainly can bring it back to the committee if you all need help, if you want us
Okay.
to, dig in our own notes or so, whatever, but let us know.
Okay.
Okay,
We will.
thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Anybody have any other questions for Julia? Thank you for doing that work.
Mhm.
Sure.
Okay. Eric, to you.
Thank you. I wanted to touch base on a couple of things that relate all the way back to the first day of the first opening day of school with the staff. We talked about our theme for the year being partnerships. And one of the things I noticed this week is a couple of partnerships that our kids have been involved in. And it's been driven by our kids, which I think is even more exciting and more important. Patton Park cleanup. They had high school kids come down and meet with Winthrop fifth graders at Patton Park with some of their teachers, and they did a fairly substantial cleanup around Patton Park and got everything cleaned up pretty well. I mean, they found some interesting things as well, but yeah. The Habitat for Humanity project that's happening down on Asbury Street, I think it's a 5-unit development. Many of our kids and some of our staff members were able to go there and help during one part of the project. They were moving quite a bit of wood and doing a little bit of framing, and I think kids were excited to be involved in the actual building of a house. So I'm sure we'll see some of them back back in action, if you will. So those are, I think, important connections that our kids are making within the community and in the partnerships of working together and working with other groups, whether they be local groups or with other schools. This weekend, the architects in our Orange Project manager and some of our staff members will be available at the Cutler Ski and Skate Sale. If you want to get an update on the Cutler Elementary School project, we'll be giving out a flyer with a QR code, answer questions. We have some sizable boards that have a lot of information on it, so we'll have a table set up there just to continue to get the word out. So be looking out for us there. And then I have a quiz for all of you. I'm curious to see if anybody can guess this. How many students see the nurses, all 5 nurses, in the month of October? Saw the nurses in the month of October.
How many?
600?
The total
Oh,
number?
I'm going,
What's the total population?
yeah, how many students,
Or
not how many visits?
How many visits? We'll call it student visits.
Oh, that's different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A big number.
Remember, we have 1,600 kids.
Yeah.
I'm sticking with 6,000.
900.
900. Well, it's in between those two. It's actually been
4,500.
2,578
Wow.
student visits. I mean,
Wow.
students could have gone more than once.
No, I know one.
And
I know, I was
we
just gonna
submit
say, I know mine did.
submit monthly to the state, the Department of Public Health. We're required to submit monthly, and our nurses have to break down whether the kids were dismissed from school or not. And our retention rate is 92%, so that's
Yes.
exciting. Our nurses are working hard to keep our kids in school
Thank you,
when they need to be.
nurses.
And then I just thought it'd be an interesting
It's interesting.
tidbit, because it's not information we often see, but we just filed the report for October, so it's kind of interesting when you start to look at the numbers over a school year. You're looking at probably 20,000 visits.
Oh my
Is there
gosh.
any breakdown of visit reasons?
No, not in the state report. It's really just whether they were dismissed due to illness, dismissed due to injury, dismissed for behavioral health,
Kicked in the head,
or
that
yeah,
was,
if they were,
Yeah.
you know, concussion in
Those
gym
things.
class. It's not
Concussion.
broken out that deeply.
Exactly.
But just interesting information. I think it's our nurses really are strapped. They work hard. They are constantly on the go, both inside and outside of the schools, and you know, connecting to kids and teachers. I mean, we also had 60 staff visits to our nurse. So they're not just working with our students; they're working with our staff as well. So thank you to our nurses.
Yeah,
Thank you, nurses.
great.
And that is all for me.
Okay. Thank you for that. All right, so I have a few things to report out on in the chair report. I want to acknowledge, as you all know, but I want to acknowledge that Francesca Connors resigned her position here on the school committee. And we thank her for her service. I want to just give the school committee a little overview of the procedures for moving forward. It's spelled out in our regional agreement. What we'll do after going forward after this meeting is we will put out a call for letters of interest from members of the community. It's spelled out in our regional agreement that the new person who will be appointed will need to be from Hamilton because the person departing was from Hamilton. The person will get appointed. We'll have a joint meeting or invite the Hamilton Select Board to sit with us. We'll interview the people who put forth letters of interest will vote and appoint a person to the committee. That person will be appointed just until the election, and then that person can choose to run for election or not. Those are the procedures on that. Does anyone have a question? Yep.
So this spring's election?
Correct.
Okay, so not the actual.
Correct. And actually, just to get into the minutia a little more, then at the spring election, that seat, that existing seat, will actually come up for reelection, and only for 2 more years, because that term is only for 2 more years, so that we don't get off cycle. So
That was,
it's just, I mean, to get a little in the weeds, the election this spring will have 3 seats up, but 2 of them will be a regular 3-year term, and 1 of them will just be a 2-year term.
and that 2-year term won't be limited to Hamilton or Wenham.
Correct. That is an important, right, that is correct. Right, so that, like, the person who's appointed could choose to run for that seat, but you're right, other people could choose to run for that seat. Yeah. Any other questions about that? And we have done this before. We can do it again. It's actually how we got Julia. So, originally. So, I wanted to give a quick readout on, I sent you all a very long email, which I am sure you all read in detail, about the MASC conference. I am not going to recreate all of that, but it was a great conference. I encourage everyone to go next year if you're able. But I did want to give you quick feedback on all of the votes that I participated in on our behalf at the Delegate Assembly. I'm going to really run through them really quickly. If you have any questions about them, just let me know and I'll talk about them. So quickly, there was a vote on changing the bylaws. I was tasked with this by this committee to make my own judgment based on the conversation there, and I voted in the affirmative, and the bylaws were approved. The bylaws change was approved. Resolution 1 was on METCO funding. I voted as directed by this committee. I voted yes, and the resolution passed. Resolution 2 was regarding the investigations and recommendations for transportation bidding procedures, which we actually referenced earlier in this meeting. I voted yes, and it was actually passed unanimously by the delegates. Resolution 3 was on regional transportation.
Quick question.
Yep.
Was there discussion about what the, I mean, it's one thing to ask MASC for help, but what can they actually do to induce more bids? Was that discussed?
Well, there was very little discussion on this because there was a lot of support in the room. But yeah, I mean, this is really just asking MASC to, to put forth, to lobby and to put forth that this is something that should be changed, that there should be
Competitive bids. Yeah.
competitive bids, correct. Resolution 3 was also about regional transportation. It was, this was about, well, I don't want to go into too much detail, but this was about the state not fulfilling their promise to provide 100% funding and asking, or the proposal was to ask to allow regional districts to charge families the difference. And I voted yes as directed by this committee. The motion failed, so it did not pass. Resolution 4 was on diversity, equity, and inclusion. It was tabled. Resolution 5 was on the MSBA cap and funding and reinstating the MSBA accelerated repair. I voted yes. It was amended on the floor. I continued to vote yes. There was some minor tweaks to it. It did pass. Resolution 6 was on the School Bus Stop Arms Surveillance Act and Enforcement. I don't really know what happened in the background, but someone got up immediately and said, we need to consult with law enforcement before we do this, and it was tabled. So I don't know what happened there. Resolution 7 was on MCAS. It was tabled. The group that, or the school committee that had put it forward requested to have it tabled because it's potentially going to become a ballot measure, and they wanted to see what the voters had to say before making a statement. Resolution 8, which is the final one, was for safe storage of firearms. I voted no, as directed by this committee, and the motion passed. So other people voted yes. Does anyone have any questions on all of that?
Thank you so much for your representation.
Yeah, it's a fun, it's really a good, the whole conference is good. You meet a lot of really interesting people, and yeah, I learned a lot. It's exhausting after 3 days. The only other thing I wanted to share is that I myself am taking it on myself to keep some track and hold some accountability about meeting length. So we're pushing it today, but I'm just going to report out on the average meeting. I wasn't going to have it as a quiz, but Eric had a quiz. So what do you guys think? What's our average meeting been so far in FY23, this current year?
2.5.
Well, a couple of hours.
2 hours.
Just say 90 minutes.
I saw.
You saw. It's almost 2 hours. It's 1 hour and 56 minutes. We were helped along by, those of you who might remember, we did have one meeting that was 23 minutes long, so.
I remember a meeting that was 6 hours.
This is since
Just this year, since
this year?
this year. So we haven't had too many
even,
data
know
points. But
how-
I just wanted to put that out there, that I am going to try to report out on that and try to hold us accountable, because it seems to help, just to know.
That's awesome, thank you.
All right. Anybody else, any other questions for me? Okay. Topics for future meetings? David has already requested a topic of Robert's rules that I have already agreed with, to put that on a future meeting. I think, Eric, we put it on this coming meeting, I think.
The next meeting.
Yeah, next
December
meeting.
6th.
Yes?
I have 2. I just don't know if it's the next one or the one after, but we have the approval for the sale of the debt for the
Oh, yeah.
athletic turf field.
Okay.
And then in addition, it's a request to enter into negotiations with our auditing firm for a new 3-year contract.
Wow. I guess that's something brand new to me. Okay. All right. I look forward to that one.
It's not that exciting.
I just don't remember that. I'm sure it has happened before.
Yeah,
I
it's-
just
yeah.
don't remember it. That's all. Does anybody else have topics for future meetings?
Can I ask what aspect of Robert's rules? Because that's just a huge, there are books written on that topic.
I know.
There's one right here.
Yeah, I have several.
I have a book.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
that Dana gave me, that lent it to me.
Yeah, I've just been loaned one, too, from Dana. Really, it was that I felt we had differing understanding and differing fluency in their use, and that it would be useful actually to get someone like from MASC to hold somewhat of a briefing and a Q&A session and try to get it level set, because I think there have been significant differences from time to time. 90%, 95% of the time, it's not an issue at all. It's when you get into lengthy, contentious issues that it's important that we all have the same understanding of the rules.
Anybody else have any other topics for future meetings?
I have a small thing, just based on your first point in your chair's report.
Mm-hmm.
The liaisons
Yep.
to be updated as
Oh,
well.
on the website?
I don't know if we need to just remove them for now and replace them later, or
I don't know.
on them.
I'm not sure that's a topic for a future meeting. That might just be a task that we can, I'm happy to address that with Janelle. I noticed that she did make some updates to the agenda, so I'll look and it sounds like maybe the
I'm happy to
liaison.
replace as
Yeah.
a liaison where needed for now.
Yeah, no, we'll put the liaisons, but for the moment, we'll get them, yeah, we can, I mean, it's a good question about whether we do that before or after we appoint, so, thank you, I will think about that. Sure. Okay. Anything else?
I'll move the motion to adjourn.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Jen. All right, all those in favor? Aye, and we are adjourned.
Nice job.
9:30.